Garrison Brothers, we are a family of bourbon makers and bourbon lovers, fully committed to proving that the finest bourbon whiskey on the planet will be born in the Texas Hill Country. A bourbon that is beyond its incredible taste also has the power to fortify friendships and faith while inspiring legendary stories for life. Good morning, everybody. My name is Justin. I go by JT, and welcome back to the Smoke&Oak YouTube channel. Today we are talking Garrison Brothers Distillery and specifically reviewing the Garrison Brothers small batch whiskey. During my research, I put some pretty decent notes together here, so I apologize if I'm looking down at my notes as we go through this, but I found Garrison Brothers to be a very interesting distillery, and I want to love their whiskey because it's just a cool story. So Garrison Brothers was started actually back in the early 2000s, around 2001 timeframe, by Dan Garrison. He started his distilling process in 2004 and became officially licensed by the federal government in 2007, which makes them the first licensed distillery in the state of Texas. In an interview that I read, one of the points that was made about Dan Garrison is that he became one of very few craft distilleries that was licensed at the time. I think there was mention in the article of only about 24 permits were issued by the federal government for distillation since the Prohibition timeframe. This is a time when big distilleries were doing all the work, and they were still trying to basically outsource a lot of their distillation to these smaller distilleries. So rather than these small distilleries making their own stuff like Garrison Brothers, they were actually being utilized to distill the big distilleries' distillates and kind of sourcing for them. So Garrison Brothers essentially started in 2004 by Dan Garrison's been running their sweet mash basically around the clock since then, 365 days a year. They're putting roughly 40 barrels a day out. If you've never been to Texas in the summertime, I don't suggest you go there because it gets quite toasty. Texas is about, on average, 10 degrees or so warmer than the state of Kentucky. And because of that extra heat, the whiskey ages quicker. And you actually want to get the whiskey aged quicker too, because if you can imagine in a rick house, and I saw a picture of one of the Garrison Brothers rick houses doing my research, and it was basically a dirt floor rick house with pole barn construction and sheet metal, and that's it. So I can only imagine in the Texas summertime that building is probably 130, 140 degrees inside. One of the things that you know about whiskey, if you've studied it at all, is there's something in the whiskey industry called the angel share. And angel share essentially is an evaporate that comes out of the barrels during the aging process. Typically, whiskey is kind of averages about 10% in that first year, where the barrels are still kind of absorbing some of the whiskey and kind of sealing themselves up. But the average over the length of time of aging is typically 3 to 4%, depending on the research you read. Typically 3 to 4%. But in Texas, Garrison Brothers said 13%, averages about 13% per year. So you can imagine 13% of your whiskey is evaporating into the air every year that they're aging this stuff. So the small batch that I have here is aged actually 3 years. So in those 3 years, 13% times 3, you do the math. That's a fair bit of product that you're missing already. One of the things that Garrison Brothers does put their whiskey in different size barrels. So they have 10-gallon barrels, 20-gallon barrels, the standard 53-gallon barrels, as well as the 59-gallon barrels that were previously used in the wine industry. So speaking to the small batch and actually all their whiskeys, they have a consistent mash bill, it seems like, from what I can tell, across all their whiskeys. This particular mash bill is 74% number one white corn, food grade white corn. That's actually grown right in southern Texas. They source it all from Texas. They use 15% red winter wheat. That's actually grown right on Dan Garrison's own 90-acre farm, right where this distillery is. And then they finish that off with 11% malted barley. So this is truly a grain-to-bottle Texas-made whiskey, distilled right in Texas, right on their own farm. And if you happen to be on Instagram, and you should follow me on Instagram, Smoke&Oak23. If you happen to be on Instagram and you follow the Garrison Brothers, I highly recommend. They post some really cool videos. They have recently posted a video of their bottling process. In the video, they show them basically sitting at a long table, a group of people, and they're bottling their whiskeys and putting the wax seal on them, and the cool little star that they put on the top of them there too, which is kind of a neat aspect that they do. What makes also Garrison Brothers unique is it's a small batch. This is their basic offering, their small batch whiskey. You can pick this up on retail shelves for about $80, $85, depending on where you are. It's a really neat looking bottle. I think it's got a star stamped in the front of it. But what's cool about it is that they're all wax sealed too, by the way. They all come in a specific small batch, so they're basically built into a vintage. So a couple things with that is, it kind of becomes a collector's item from day one. So if you happen to find a really, really tasty batch you might want to buy more of those because they're not going to be released again, at least not in the exact same fashion. And the other thing that's kind of neat about it is they're all unique. So the 2023 release is going to be different than the 22, and it's going to be different than subsequent releases after that as well. This particular bottle that I have here is bottle number 43985, and its release date is 2023, so this past year. And it's stamped right on the bottle too, by the way. Oh, and another thing that I think is pretty neat, and I'm sure there's other distilleries that do this, but I just think this is just kind of a personal touch. The age stamp and release, or the bottle number and release date on here are handwritten. This is a handwritten by a marker on here. So somebody actually took the time to handwrite on this bottle the information that they're providing for you, which I think is just kind of a neat personal touch. So in the small batch form factor, Garrison Brothers bottles this at 94 proof or 47% ABV. They unsurprisingly don't talk about what their entry proof is, so I don't know what percentage of this is cut down by water when they distill it. But regardless, this is kind of their flagship offering. The first one, not the first one, but their flagship offering, their small batch, their basic. I was going to pull up their website here and see if I can tell you what other whiskeys they have. So they've got their small batch traditional in a 94 proof. They have their single barrel, which also comes in a 94 proof. They've got a cowboy bourbon. Looks like it has a gold top on it. The single barrel, by the way, is a silver top. And that one's bottled at 140.9 proof. They have I'm going to probably butcher this name, Belmorthia, which is bottled at 114 proof. It looks like that's got blue wax on it. Their kind of tan colored wax is Laguna Madre at 101 proof. Honeydew, which actually I'm looking for a honeydew. If you happen to find one, I would love to try that. That has the yellow top on it, yellow wax top. It's bottled only at 80 proof, so it's only going to be a 40% ABV, but it's one of those whiskeys where they throw honey in the barrel, and the oak staves absorb some of the honey flavor, so it gives it a little bit of a sweet taste. Ladybird, purple top. That one's at 114 proof. They have a high rye bourbon, bottled in 98 proof. And then they have their Guadalupe, which in the video I mentioned on Instagram that I just recently saw, they were doing the Guadalupes because it has kind of a copper-colored wax, and that was the wax that was on there. And that one's bottled at 107 proof. I've heard good things about the Guadalupe, more so than the small batch. I mentioned in short that this bottle tends to have a pretty grassy note, and I've tried it a couple times since then. You can see there's a little missing off the bottle. And that hasn't changed. It's very earthy, very grassy on the nose. You get definitely a little bit of corn, but there are some floral notes, and I get some sweet honey and some caramel as well. It's not bad, not a bad nose, I should say. It's a flavorful nose. There's a lot going on there, and it's pleasant. I think the more it breathes, it gets a little more pleasant. When I had first poured it into the glass, I was a little bit disappointed with the extreme corn grassy note that you got, but that's kind of mellowed out now a little bit for me, and I think it smells a little better. I still get very grass forward, very corn forward on the flavor. It's good. It's not bad. I feel like, to me at least, it tastes a little bit young, that it would kind of maybe mellow out the flavor a bit more if it aged a bit longer. But like we talked about, in Texas, you can't age for too long because you've got the angel share situation going on. So I don't know. It's smooth on the finish, guys. And that's something that I know Dan mentioned in his own review of his own whiskey, is it's very, very smooth on the finish. It's got no bite really at all. There's just a hint of spice, and it finishes with just a beautiful kind of like a honey bun kind of flavor almost. But still very grassy on the start. Corn. There's a slight spice burn on that second taste there. But again, it smoothens out really quickly. It doesn't linger too long, and it's nice, smooth finish. I get a little baking spice on the end, definitely some vanilla, some honey as well. Yeah. Overall, not a bad whiskey. Would I run out to go buy another bottle of the 2023 small batch? I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't. From a Smoke&Oak score standpoint, I'm going to give this one probably like a solid, I'm going to give it a 6.5. I'm going to give it a 6.5. I think it's a good whiskey. I'm curious what it would taste like in a drink. It's too grassy. I don't think it'll taste good in an old fashioned. And I'm going to search their website here. I was trying to find on their website, guys, any way to mix this in what they suggest mixing. I think it's kind of fun to hop on the websites and see what the individual distillery likes to mix their own bourbons in. I don't see anything on the Garrison Brothers website, so I'm not sure what the preference would be. I think it probably would be okay in like a whiskey Coke. We could give that a shot, but you know what? Give me a minute. All right, I got a glass with ice. Let's try this first. Pour a little on the ice and see what that tastes like. I'm not going to make a big drink here because it's early in the day. I got more stuff to do. All right. Garrison Brothers on the ice. Cheers. Actually, not bad. I would drink this. It kind of it's still earthy, still grassy, and I think that's what's ruining it for me. It's got more corn and more grass than I want it to, and I think that's where the flavor is kind of coming from. So I got a Pepsi here because I don't do Coke. We'll see what that tastes like. We're just going to do a splash because I don't like to overdo it on my whiskey Cokes. Cheers. That just tastes like sweetgrass. It's definitely got a little bit more of the charcoal, a little more oak as it sits here in the glass for just a minute, and a little bit more of that leather, saddle leather kind of taste as well. But you should definitely give it a whirl if you find it. Garrison Brothers small batch whiskey from Garrison Brothers Distillery in High, Texas. It's got a unique flavor characteristic is all I will say about that. All right. Thank you for tuning into the Smoke&Oak YouTube channel, you guys. Please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Drink responsibly. Be an adult. We'll see you next time. Next up on the Smoke&Oak YouTube channel, we have Penelope Barrel Strength. Never tried anything from the Penelope Distillery Company before, but we're going to go ahead and give this one a shot. So if you're interested in following along and tasting with me, go ahead and get yourself a Penelope Barrel Strength 4-grain whiskey. This one comes in at 116 proof, 58 ABV, which just might be the highest proof whiskey I've had yet. So, like, subscribe, and share. Follow along if you want to. Go get yourself a bottle of Penelope Barrel Strength, and we'll try it together. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.